In November 2019, Westchester County released a comprehensive report on the Affordable Housing Needs Assessment to establish a database foundation for the creation and preservation of affordable housing, an issue that I know is central to most, if not all, of the people in this room. The assessment looks at the county's history of housing policy, lays out the methodology for data analysis, provides findings on a wide variety of demographics, housing stock, and housing affordability issues, and provides recommendations. It is a thorough and thought-provoking piece of work, and particularly interesting to organizations like BRI, whose members have been so deeply engaged in the issue of affordable housing, both building new units of housing where it's needed, and preserving the safe, quality, and availability of existing multifamily homes. So here to give us a deep dive, to help us better understand the findings and how they impact you, both as business owners engaged in this issue and as residents of the county, is the Commissioner of Planning for Westchester County, Norma Drummond. She first joined Westchester County government in 1986 as a staff assistant to the county's Office of Economic Development. She then moved to the Department of Planning, where she held positions including Program Director for Section 8 Housing. She ultimately became Deputy Commissioner, Acting Commissioner, and starting in 2018, Commissioner of the Planning Department. She'll be our guide for most of this evening, but to get us started off on the right foot is a man who needs no introduction, so he'll only get a very, very short one. George Latimer has been a lifelong resident of the county, a marketing executive, a member of the Rye City Council, a member of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, the New York State Assembly, the New York State Senate, and now serves as our Westchester County Executive. Through it all, he has always been a good friend of the BRI and the Builders Institute. So please give a very warm welcome to County Executive George Latimer.
Thank you, Tim. It's a real pleasure to be with you tonight. I am the warm-up act for Norma Drummond and I guess Blanca Lopez, two of the outstanding people on the team, and the person who made Norma Commissioner, whatever that title was. I don't know if that's the actual job description. But Norma's going to go through the affordable housing plan that was put together. It was long in awaiting. We originally had hoped to have it done sooner, but we knew that we needed a basis of fact and intellectual understanding to describe what the affordable housing challenges were here in the county. We all were aware we had a housing lawsuit with the federal government that took quite a while to be resolved. It's not officially resolved yet, but for all intents and purposes it was. My predecessor administration completed the amount of affordable housing units that were required in the plan and zoning plans and so forth. So now we're looking prospectively as to what the challenges are, and this report, as Norma goes through it, will highlight some of the numbers. What this is not is an allocation plan. Norma will highlight that again in a few seconds. The past couple of plans that have come out, I know I'm stealing her first slide, because we've been through this about 8 times together, she and I. The prior plans that were done gave a community name and a number attached to it. And immediately, everything that had to do with the study was forgotten, and a person would say, oh, my community has to produce 150 units, how are we going to do that? And we immediately got to a contentious place. We weren't seeking to do that with this. We want to lay out what the challenges are. Things have changed over the years, and I think any of us who've been here for any length of time understand that. There are different demands in the marketplace. You're living it every day. And we in government are generally very slow to respond to things that happen differently. It was, and I know it wasn't mentioned in my resume, as Tim pointed out, I had a 20-year career in marketing, and things changed dramatically in the way you go about marketing a product or a service. That taught me that I have to be flexible and constantly try to deal with issues as they lay before us. So Norma and Blanca will give into you that in a few seconds. I just want to mention, though, when I'm in a room like this, I see a lot of people that I know, and most importantly, that I rely on for good, solid input. Over the years, Richard Hyman, who's now chair of our planning board, has held many positions in the county. He's consulted on many projects. He is one of the key players from outside the official family of the administration as chair of the planning board that brings his expertise into the family. We have people like Ken Finger and Bob Sorensen. I see from Mamaroneck, both Murphys and Stillmans, and people that I've spent a lot of years working with, all of whom help us frame the challenges ahead. because these are not easy days. They're not easy days to construct. They're not easy days to maintain. And we have a whole new set of people that are looking for housing in a very different way than they've done historically. It requires us to be flexible. And in tracking who those people are, this little graphic that I'll take the next and final 2 minutes of my presentation to talk about is something that's at hand right now that's very important. And that is Census 2020, making sure we have as complete a count as we can across Westchester County. Westchester County at the last census was determined to have slightly under 1 million people, 974,000, I think is the rounded number. But I'll use Richard and Bob as co-conspirators on this. I live right next door to Portchester, one town away. Portchester in that census came in at 30,000 people. And Richard, Bob, and I will give you $100 if you can find any less than 35 to 40,000 people in that community. Because there was an undercount, and the undercount was for lots of different reasons. People who live in multifamily buildings, people who are immigrants, not comfortable with the English language as a primary language, people who are particularly old, maybe young children that weren't counted. But whatever it is, Portchester, the community, did not get its fair share of money that's allocated based on population. And by extension, if that's true in Yonkers and Mount Vernon and other parts of this county, Westchester County did not get its fair share of money and, of course, political representation, which follows the census. So we're making an all-out effort as a county government in concert with the state government and municipal governments as never before. I've lived through in public office 3 prior census takings. I've never seen the energy that's going into it to try to make sure that we alert everybody to the importance of filling out the census forms accurately. Now, we don't fill out the forms. What we do is make sure we address the objections that people have and alert them so that when the first round of this comes in April, I think it's April 1st, those of us who are comfortable operating on our computers, we will get information, a code, we can fill it out, go in, and finish the census form online. That's great. Not everybody has that type of comfort level or access to computer material. So mail forms will follow, and then at some point in time, the traditional guy with the clipboard going down the block knocking on doors. But you know better than I do how hard it is to track residents within a multifamily situation. It's hard enough to track whether the person who has the main name on the lease in the apartment, or if the co-op is being sublet, that person exists, much less how many other people are in that family. And we need to try to understand and know that. So we do need your help. I believe Norma's going to touch on this a little bit, and Blanca will. But there are things that you can do for those of you who are managing multifamily buildings that can help the process. You can put up some signs appropriately in the lobby, wherever you have that opportunity, so people can see that there's a census situation. There may well be a presentation to the people in the building. If you have a community room or the lobby where people can come and they can get basic information on the census so that they have every opportunity to understand why it's important and why it's important for us that they be counted. So we encourage you to help us do that process. The process begins April. It will end before the end of the year. It's one of those projects that gets done within real time and it's over with. But we hope the numbers will be accurate. We don't want to overcount anybody, or we don't want to be undercounted. And that is preparatory for the things we're going to fight for. Because when we're fighting for assistance to help us build affordable housing, it's going to be based in part on what our population is. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to thank you for the opportunity to say hello. There are many other issues in county government we should talk about. I think Tim, Jeff, and others will create a forum. I'm happy to come back, sit with small groups of people, large groups of people, specialized areas of interest. We'll bring a county legislator or two, and we'll try to make some progress on issues that are important to you. And everything's on the table. And as my friends know, you can talk to the Murphys and the Stillmans. I take negative feedback as well as positive feedback. And as long as we can have a cup of coffee while we're talking, we'll be fine. We'll make some progress. So with that, I'm going to stop. I guess I'll take the privilege of introducing Norma Drummond. Norma has served Westchester County government for a long period of time in a number of capacities. When I walked in the door January of 18, she was the Deputy Commissioner of Planning, and it didn't take a brain surgeon. These are how I so easily be county executive, to make Norma Drummond the Commissioner of Planning. She has been central on the issues of housing and census and so many other ones. We're very happy to have her in this capacity. Norma Drummond, to give you the presentation. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here. I haven't been here in a couple of years, so it's really great to be here. Now, I'm here to talk about housing, but I'm going to start with the census because, as the county executive says, any opportunity I get to get an audience to just hear about what's new with this census, because you guys have a critical audience that you have access to that we really need your help getting to. So Tim and I are going to tag team here. He's going to, if you don't mind, moving on to the next slide. The census itself, it's done every 10 years. It is mandated by the United States Constitution. We've been conducting censuses in this country since 1790. So this is the 24th decennial census. But what's new this time around is that the census is going to be online. Your residents, your households, are going to get an invitation to respond to the census with a 12-digit code for your specific housing unit. You are not going to get a form in the mail this time, not unless you wait for the 4th mailing to come to your house, okay? The Census Bureau is trying to do it all online. We have a question already. I didn't even get very far.
How do you have the email address?
We're not sending you, sorry, the Census Bureau is not, in fact, but that's actually a really good question. If you get a letter addressed to your name, an email addressed to you, or a phone call addressed to you, it's not a real Census Bureau application, or a Census Bureau letter.
Oh, so you're getting a letter.
You're going to get a letter addressed to your household, to the household or resident of, okay? They don't have your names, they don't know who lives where, okay? So, but we've done a lot of work behind the scenes to identify housing units, all right? So let me just get into the presentation itself. So the census is really important because it determines where the 435 seats in the House of Representatives in Washington are coming from. New York is probably going to lose another seat at least. We're hoping we don't lose 2 seats with this census. But as our population does not keep up with other states, we are likely to lose another seat. But more importantly, the census is used for the basis of how $880 billion a year is determined and split amongst the country. In fact, the Census Bureau tells us that for every person that is not counted, it is a loss to local municipalities, including the county, of $2,500 per person per year. So just 400 people not getting counted is a loss of $1 million a year to the county, and but it goes across healthcare and education and fire departments and police and fixing potholes outside. So it's a loss. Just 400 people is $1 million a year. Now, as the county executive said, we weren't worried about it in 2010. It wasn't until after the census results came out that we were like, some of these numbers are just wrong. Portchester and Ossining were clearly undercounted, likely by thousands of people. And so those communities have been living with the 2010 census numbers for 10 years, and how much sales tax revenue they get has been tied to those 2010 census numbers. So that's why it's important, and some communities are taking this so seriously they've got their own complete count committees going in to help them collect the information. Tim, if you don't mind. There are hard to count areas across this entire county, okay? If you see an area on this map with color, this is an area that in 2010 had lower than the average rate of return. Nationally, the rate of return was 76%. Westchester County in 2010 had a 73% rate of return. So we started below the national average. But more than half of the city of Mount Vernon, the village of Elmsford, and the village of Portchester, more than half of those 3 municipalities have color, which means that they had lower than the average rates in more than half of those 3 municipalities. But there are, as I said, there are areas of color, and what's unique, we actually did reconnaissance on each of these areas. What's unique to each of these, with the exception of that one up in Yorktown that we just kind of still blows us away. But what's unique, they are all areas of multifamily housing, which is why we really need your help. That's why we were really reaching out to Tim about why we needed help. I have brought with me tonight 500 flyers that I am hoping, Jeff is handing out right now, I am hoping you will be able to take back to your buildings, and that you will be able to post by your mailboxes in your buildings, because it is so important for people, particularly renters, to know that every household has to get counted. I'm going to tell you a real quick story to just help you get this point home. I have 4 children, and I tell people I can't count any of my 4 children. My son and his wife are married, they live in their own housing, they'll take care of themselves. But my 3 girls are students. Two of them, my twins, are 26. They're both in grad school, both working on their PhDs. One's in Salt Lake City, one's in Utah, one's up in Boston. And my youngest daughter is in college, so she lives in a dorm. She lives in a group quarters. She'll get counted where she lives in Washington, D.C. But my 26-year-olds, and Richard, my apologies, I know you've heard this before, Richard Hyman. So my 26-year-old in Salt Lake City was home around Thanksgiving and asked if I was going to be home the next night. And I said, no, I have to do a census presentation. And my 26-year-old said, what's a census? Young, but think about it, 10 years ago she was 16. There's a whole generation of young people who don't necessarily know what the census is. Now, let me bring that point even further home by telling you my other one, who's working on her PhD at MIT, okay? She's not smart, I can't say this girl's not smart. I talked to her about 3 weeks ago, and she said, Mom, I got the census. And I said, no, you didn't. And she said, Mom, I got the census. It was on that pile of mail that fell over, that was on the table, and it fell over because nobody's looked at the mail in a long time. Young people don't look at their mail. So that's why we really have to get the message across to young people. Now, the Census Bureau will also tell you that children under 5, their best guess is that children under 5 were undercounted by 1 million kids in the 2010 census. We think it's because parents didn't think that the children under 5 mattered. Every person counts. We don't care how old they are. But we can tell by birth certificate, by birth records, that the children under 5 in Westchester were undercounted. So it's important for us to get to so many different populations. Remember I told you that you're going to respond electronically. How many senior citizens are really comfortable on the computer that they're going to say, what do I do with this 12-digit code? How do I respond online? All right, how many people don't even have internet access in their home? They don't have computers in their home. We really are worried about undocumented people. All right, but we're working on so many different avenues to be able to get the populations and all these hard-to-count groups to better understand the census is coming, it is safe to respond to it, and why it's really so critically important for them to do. So again, you'll be able to respond online, by computer. You'll be able to go to your public library or to a public, what we're going to call census hubs, to publicly available computers where there will be people there who will be able to help you to respond if you're not comfortable responding in your own home. You'll be able to respond on your smartphone. That's what's going to get our young people to respond, is the fact that they'll be able to do it right on their smartphone. The Census Bureau just a couple weeks ago released a training video to train people how to help people respond to the census. The training video on how to respond to the census is only six and a half minutes long. So if you can train people in 6.5 minutes, you can actually complete the census in a lot less than that, okay? So it's only 9 questions. They're only going to ask you, what's your name, where do you live, what's your age, your sex, your race, your ethnicity, do you own or rent your home, okay? This is the one opportunity where the Census Bureau is able to collect 100% of the population data, and they're able to get a good sense of how many vacant housing units there are in this county, as well as how many of our units are ownership, how many of them are rental. So, and that's part of the information that you're going to see in a minute in the housing needs assessment. So it is really helpful for us to be able to get really good and accurate data. While the census is conducting Census 2020, and by the way, the first letters are going to go out on March 12th. Officially, the county executive was correct. April 1st is Census Day. But by April 1st, you'll have gotten 3 mailings from the Census Bureau already. The first one goes out March 12th with your invitation to respond. The second one's going to go out about 4 days later. It will get mailed on March 16th. The third one gets mailed on March 26th. The third one's just going to be a postcard, and that's not going to have your code. And it's the fourth one that won't go out until April 8th that you'll actually get the paper survey sent to you if in fact by then you have not responded. The good news about us Americans responding electronically is that starting March 20th, we are going to be able to see in real time what our response rates are across the country. All those hard-to-count areas that I showed you, those were by block group because that's the county planning department's map of the hard-to-count areas. But the Census Bureau is going to release that data at the census tract level. So we're going to be able to call up Mount Vernon and Portchester and Elmsford and be able to say, this one census tract is not doing well. Who's there? What do we tell the Census Bureau? Who do we send in? Somebody that might be culturally or language-wise more likely to get a response. So we want to be able to help the Census Bureau get real good information. But we're going to be able to see those response rates starting March 20th. So it's going to be really helpful in terms of our ability to make sure we are in fact getting as many people as we possibly can counted across the country. Oh, there's the dates. I got ahead of myself. So and the last mailing, by the way, will be after it's going to be on April 20th, and so that's the one that's going to go really be pretty much a postcard that just says it's not too late. You still have time to respond to the census. If in fact by the middle to end of April you have not responded to the census, that's when the census takers, or enumerators as they're called, will start knocking on doors. All right. So that if people are saying, I don't want people knocking on my doors, particularly our senior citizens, the response to tell them is when you get your code, when you get your letter, respond to the census. Because if not, you're just putting your name, your household on a list where they have to send somebody there. All right, so it's really important to do that. Now, the other thing I want to tell you, particularly for any of you who may have senior buildings, is we are training a whole slew of people with a PowerPoint presentation on the census. And we are asking them to go out to all the senior centers, to all the nutrition programs, and to all the senior buildings. If you have an aunt that lives in there, if you have a grandmother that lives, or an elderly parent who lives there, bring cookies and go in and educate the seniors about the fact that census is coming. So we are training a whole slew of people that may be asking or may be coming in to use a community room and put together a group to be able to educate the residents there. If any of you would like us to come and do that for your buildings, we would be absolutely happy to. We are training a whole group of people. I have well over 100 people who have signed up to help us with the census people. The League of Women Voters, we have Indivisible Westchester, we have a whole bunch of different groups that are anxious to help. This is the census and the ability to get the right amount of money to Westchester covers all demographics, it covers all agencies, it covers all groups. So it's a project that we have all gotten our arms around, the fact that the county needs help to get this done. And so we've got all sorts of people that are willing to help us and get that message out. Thank you. So you have a sample of what the letter's going to look like. Again, it's addressed to the resident of, and then it will have a 12-digit census ID. So we need to let people know to watch for this. Bottom line is, if you do not get a letter, if you don't get a code, I'll tell you another funny story about my daughter out in Utah. So when I told her about the fact that the census was coming, and I said, well, you'll get it in the mail. And she goes, well, what if I don't get mail? And I was like, well, the Census Bureau, they're going to have your address because you have a dish to watch TV or whatever it is. She goes, Mom, we don't watch TV. I came to find out that my 26-year-old daughter lives in an illegal basement apartment. It's affordable. Guys, it's affordable housing for a student in grad school. All right, and apparently it has a great yard for her dog. That was her priority at 26. All right, so but the Census Bureau, the Census Bureau does not care if the housing is legal. We want to count people, and we are counting housing units. So the County Planning Department is a census affiliate. We work behind the scenes with the Census Bureau to help them prepare for the census. I will tell you, in the summer of 2016, we worked to identify all of these housing units. The housing needs assessment, in a second, I'm going to tell you that there are officially 345,885 housing units in Westchester County. When we did our address research, we found 370,000 housing units. We found 24,000 housing units more than the Census Bureau had records for. If that doesn't scare you about our ability to get an accurate count, it should. Because just presuming one person lives in each of those units, and we all know there could be families in them, they could be vacant as well, but even just one person living in each of those units is the difference between Westchester being over 1 million people or not, being the under million, because we're about 374,000 people. Sorry, 974,000 people, sorry, so if you don't mind. So that's it for census. Any questions before I move on to the housing needs assessment? Yes?
So I sell side liability insurance, and I see this as the biggest opportunity for fraudulent census
I will tell you that
to impersonate the census, to send letters, to ask for email addresses, personal information. Is there anything being done to try and guard against that?
Yes.
Especially with seniors and people that may be vulnerable?
A whole part of the presentation that we have prepared for the seniors is what you should ask for and what you should never be asked for. Okay?
That's only if they hear the presentation.
Well, but again, if you get asked for a credit card, a donation, if you get asked for a bank account number, if you get asked for your mother's maiden name, that's not a real census taker there. So again, part of our presentation is you should ask for an ID. They're going to have this with them. They'll have that with them. So they will have. But the other part of it is, and the Census Bureau will tell you, they're not making public all of their security protocols. But we do know the Census Bureau, because they've told us, and New York City Census itself has brought up domain names of all the related sites that they could possibly think of. So again, it's 2020census.gov, so they brought up census2020.gov, and they bought census2020.org, and so they brought up a whole bunch of the other domain names so that nobody else could get, and they did it a while ago. All right, so we totally agree with you. We've already got the county's Department of Public Safety, as well as our Consumer Protection and the Attorney General's office, working on making sure that any hoax that we hear about, any scam that we hear about, that people get with the word out, and we start acting on this, anything we hear about very, very quickly. Yes?
One question that I can
Hang
imagine.
on a minute. Hang on one second. This way we can hear.
Okay, one question I can imagine being asked, and that is if their immigration status is not clear, they'll say, does immigration have access to this information?
Very good question. Thank you very much. So one of the things that is very clear is employees of the Census Bureau are covered under Title 13 of the U.S. Code. They are under penalty of jail and a huge fine. They are not allowed to share any information that they get. In fact, the Census Bureau this time around is able to get data from all other federal departments. They get it from the mail, the U.S. Postal Service, they get it from HUD, they get it from the VA, they get it from Social Security. They are allowed to get data from other federal departments. But by law, by code, and as proven by courts, they are not allowed to share any of the information that they get. In fact, it extends to the County Planning Department. Those 24,000 housing addresses that we found, I'm not even allowed to tell the local municipalities the addresses that we found. My employees are covered by Title 13. We are not allowed to share data. Okay?
So they're not going to get
the other agencies are not allowed to get data, census data.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say something quick. Thank
Can
you.
you hold on one moment?
I just want to say something quick. Thank you for sharing that you were in college living in a basement. I live in a basement when I came to this country. I'm an immigrant. And that's what made me say, when people think it's a bad thing, it's not a bad thing, but you started somewhere and say that I save money until they own a few property. But for the government, they think it's a bad thing, you try to make money. At least what you can afford is better than the shelter in the street, so thank you for saying that.
As long as it's safe.
Yes, I agree. There's a lot of things people should take into consideration, and I do agree with it, but I think it's safe most of the time. It's better than the street that people end up living in other people's home there to get problems and stuff like that. So thank you for sharing that there.
Yep.
We have a question here. Nikki?
So,
Here you go.
you say that they have to go online and register their census online. So who is securing the data and making sure that the data is not penetrable?
Okay, so the Census Bureau has a whole team and a whole security. They've actually testified before Congress about their security and the measures.
Has
So
it been
that's,
tested?
what?
Has it been tested?
It has been, in fact, we can tell you it has been tested because one of the issues that came up, you saw 4 sets of dates. One of the things that they were extremely concerned about, if anybody remembers when the registrations first came online for Obamacare, everybody tried to get on the system at the same time and the system crashed. So they found they actually had to break up their mailings into 4 sets to go across the country so that in fact their call centers and the online system would not be overwhelmed by everybody responding to the census on the very first day or very first
Well, it's
day.
not technically everybody trying to get in online at the same time. It is how secure is the data once they get into online and they actually fill out the form and to ensure that the data is secure.
Right.
That's a major issue right now, and it's everywhere. So.
No, I
you know,
understand.
Security company, like, you know, who is it? Have they been tested? How secure is it?
There's going to be more information on the Census Bureau's website if you want to see. There's a whole section there about confidentiality, security, okay? Because part of the Census Bureau's message is it's safe, it's important, and it's easy, okay?
But, you know,
No, I know, it's-
not in the world today, nothing is safe.
I understand, and that's why I'm saying you can find more information on their website. Yes?
How about the homeless people? How do they get that?
Thank you very much for asking. So every year, to qualify for our federal grants, the county conducts a count of our homeless. We work with our local police departments. It's one night in January that we send crews out all across this county to count our homeless folks. And so we did, the last week of January, or January 23rd, we had people go out, some of my own staff actually did it. They go out and they actually took the longitudinal and latitudinal location of every street homeless person that they found. And we've already provided all that data to the Census Bureau. Okay, in addition, we've already provided to the Census Bureau the locations of all the soup kitchens, all the food pantries, all the overnight shelters, so that the Census Bureau is already armed with information about where can they find residents who don't have permanent homes.
And how do you approach them?
That's the Census Bureau, they'll take care of that. They're trained to do that. Because just because somebody's homeless doesn't mean that they are any more worrisome to approach than somebody who might be living in an apartment, okay?
Okay, we have a question on this end.
And then I'm gonna get into the housing needs assessment.
I know you mentioned this in the beginning, but can you cover again what's the benefit of participating? Because you do have a number of people who are not documenting and now be here of sharing information across the country that's discussing government. So can you repeat again what are the benefits of people to participate?
Okay. So number one, there's the greatest benefit that we're all gonna recognize and benefit from is the fact that $880 billion of federal funds every year is distributed based on census data. That's from a George Washington Institute of Policy report based on 2016 dollars. So $880 billion is up at stake for distribution based on census data. All right, so that's, if you take the 880 and divide it by the 232 million people in this country, that's where you get to that $2,500 per person number, okay? So that's the greatest issue that most of our municipalities here are really, really worried about. And so there are many, many ways, and the count is actually already started here in Westchester. In February, the Census Bureau started, this month, the Census Bureau started counting what we call our group quarters. Remember I told you my daughter that lives in a dorm is in a group quarter? So they started counting our dorms, our prisons, our assisted living facilities, the nursing homes in this county. So those places where people have permanent residences in some other facility than a single family home or an apartment building or something like that. They've already started counting here in Westchester with those demographics. All right, so yeah, so there's a lot, this whole thing is so multifaceted, but I do want to raise one other issue. If you think about how...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be difficult, but if you're talking to someone out there that's attending the building, and wants them to participate, I don't see how they can already live with a 25-minute number. Because we come back and ask, sometimes the news one right here. That's really one of those questions that I'm trying to ask. So the average person out there, how do you make them understand that they should participate to benefit them?
So the census, in anticipation of the census every 10 years, 2 years in advance, the Census Bureau does what they call the CBAM survey. It's the Census Barriers, Attitudes, and Motivators Survey. In 2008, I've done this presentation so many times, I can do this without a slide. In 2008, they did this. In 2008, the response was 14% of the people across the country who took the time to respond to the survey said they were not going to respond to the census. In reality, I already told you that number was 24% because the response rate was 76%. In 2018, they sent the same survey around. They sent it to 50,000 households. Only 17,500 households responded. Of that, 33% in 2018 said they were not going to respond to the census. They asked them why. They don't care. What's in it for me? Distrust of the government. You know, all those normal reasons that anybody would think of. They asked them, by the way, how familiar are you with the census? Only 79% of the people who took the time to respond to the census were We're familiar with the census. The others were like my 26-year-old daughter. What's a census? Okay? But, again, think of all the new people that have come to this country in the last 10 years. But then they asked the question, what would motivate you to respond to the census? And this is, I think, where you might be headed. 94% of the people who responded, took the time to respond to the survey, said that if it meant more money for health care and for fire departments, that would motivate them to respond. 85% said if it meant more money for schools, that would motivate them to respond. And 92% said if it meant more money for road repairs and to fix the potholes outside, that would encourage them to respond. Okay, so that helps us to inform and to motivate people by making the connection to people that money means we're going to fix the roads. That money means more health care, more hospitals, more school funding. That's where those numbers come from. Because if you can get more money to your school district, guess what? It's less money you're going to have to pay in your taxes. Okay? That's a strong motivator.
I think we need to close up.
That's fine. Thank you very much for your attendance and for your participation on that. Well, let's move on to the housing needs assessment. Oh, you know that. That was just a warm-up. All right, so welcome to the housing needs assessment. County Executive Latimer did release this in November of last year. We released it right immediately ahead of time to our nonprofit housing organizations because the topic is just of such importance to them. We've now met with all the municipalities, we met with the groups, the regional discussions of the municipalities, encouraging them to take this up, and understand it. We've now gone out to a bunch of other groups now, so you guys are one of those groups that we're trying to get to. When we took this to Westchester County Association last week, and Tim was there in the room for the presentation, one of the first questions we got asked was, how many units does each municipality have to do? Because I want to help them get there. Well, the municipalities have a totally different take on that. So again, it is not a allocation plan. Every municipality does not get told how many units they need to get to. It is an assessment of their needs. And unlike previous, this is the third time we've done a housing needs assessment in Westchester. We did one back in the early 90s, Rutgers University did it. We did one in 2004. And that one in 2004 really took us through 2015, what the need was. All right, but the difference between those and this one was those were a countywide study. It was a countywide need. It was a countywide number. It didn't tell each municipality what their issues were. This report is very, very different. This one is so data-driven. There is data in here, including in the appendix. The whole document is 640 pages. Included in the appendix is a 7-page analysis of each municipality of their data. Okay, so that Mamaroneck can't say, well, that's the countywide number, it's not mine. Their number's in there. Their affordability, their income levels, and so it takes every topic and it goes by the existing housing stock, it goes by demographics, it goes by income and affordability. So it goes to special needs populations. It covers a whole host of different topics. By the way, Tim has this presentation, so he would have the ability to get it out to anybody who's interested in it. All right, so don't necessarily worry about taking pictures of the screen if you really want the whole presentation. You're welcome to it. So if you don't mind, let's move on. So let's start with the fact that, as I've already said, I'm going to tie this to the census. I'm going to be prepared for that. So Westchester is home to almost 1 million people, 975 thereabouts. Go ahead. We like to start with this quote because we did ask a couple people out in the field, out in the Westchester field, about why is this undertaking this study important? And Bill Cuddy, we truly think, came up with one of the best quotes for us. And so Westchester's long and short-term economic viability is predicated upon our housing inventory meeting the demands of our workforce. You will see I will tie this to workforce and to jobs multiple times, okay? The county executive's report demonstrates our dereliction in delivering adequate, accessible, and affordable housing. It's a call to action. If we don't address the miscarriage of our policies and perspectives, we fail our families and workers. The problem may be intractable, but it isn't insurmountable. Let's start right with the economics here. More people commute in to work in Westchester than the people who live and work here. Okay? 199,000 people are commuting, are clogging our highways, are filling up the trains and the buses to get to work, to get to the jobs here in the county. Many of them have to do that because they can't afford to live in Westchester. All right? Almost as many people are commuting out. But you know what? Westchester was built as a community. We grew from New York City north and from the Hudson River east. So we were always a bedroom community for New York City. So that number doesn't surprise us. But the number that there's almost as many people commuting into Westchester as commuting out, that was a surprise. 90,000 people live in poverty in this county. Now, this report is done right after the last recession was, so we have a lot of people who truly never ever thought they were going to have lost their job, and did in the last recession. So that number grew from 2000 to 2017 almost 14%. So we're going to go into some housing statistics. So there's a number, 1,885 housing units, as I said before. We know there's a lot more than that, but we have to go with the official statistics that are out there. 81% of our housing stock was built before 1979, was built before lead-based paint was banned. That's an important number for us because it actually supported the county's application for a $4.1 million grant to HUD to control lead-based paint. We still have a lot of lead-based paint in this county. We have a lot of children with elevated blood levels because they live in that housing that has lead-based paint. All right, just to give you some sense of the size difference, Village of Buchanan has the smallest with the 864 units. It's so under, the size difference is so huge between that and the city of Yonkers with over 82,000 housing units. This was a surprise. Westchester, many people think of Westchester as the bedroom, as the home ownership community. You move out of New York City because you want to own your home, go to the good schools. We are below the national average for home ownership. I know, right below, I get that. But we are below the national average. And the averages, by the way, are a high in the town of Newcastle. And again, this is why I say the data's out there for every municipality. There's a high in Newcastle where 92% of the people who live in Newcastle own their home, to a low of only 35% in the village of Sleepy Hollow. All right, so the data's in there for each of the different municipalities. So again, because we're below the national average for ownership, we're above, just slightly above. It's always important for us to have a conversation about affordable housing to also include subsidized housing. And so just to get an update, we are losing public housing units. Many of them have been converted over the years, but we are now down to fewer than 2,500 public housing units in this county. All right, those are the housing units that were built for the poorest of the poor, because they could literally live in there even with no income, and the government was subsidizing. Section 8, those numbers have not grown. Sequestration has not helped us, the federal budgets and the lack of extra funding put in the budgets. But for the first time, we have ETPA data. We now know that there are 34,000 ETPA, or Emergency Tenant Protection Act units in this county in 1,700 buildings. All right? We start to get into the issues of our housing. So we have 4,500 units that are severely overcrowded. That means more than 1.5 persons per room, not per bedroom, per room. Okay? We have 2,500 substandard units. That means they don't have working kitchens and baths. But the biggest number by far is we have 72,000 households who are severely cost burdened. That means that they are paying more than 50% of their income toward their rent. If I look at how many households are paying more than 30% of their income toward their rent, that number jumps. That number is over 140,000 people or households when we start talking about the paying more than 30% of their income toward their rent. This is a new picture. We've never really had to worry about foreclosures before, but since 2008, foreclosures have hit this county hard, particularly in northern Westchester. Now, many people will say, well, wait, the most number of foreclosures was in the city of Yonkers. And you're absolutely right. Over 1,700 units have been foreclosed upon in the city of Yonkers. But when I look at the number of foreclosures in the community as a percentage of their total housing units, we tell an entirely different story. Only 2% of Yonkers' housing units have been foreclosed upon. But look how it has affected northern Westchester. We still have the city of Mount Vernon in there. But Peekskill, almost 5% of the housing units in Peekskill have been foreclosed upon. And then Yorktown, Cortlandt, Lewisboro, and North Salem have all been so significantly hit by foreclosures. And they're still recovering because New York has the longest process for foreclosures, 444 days. So there are many units where the banks haven't taken it over yet, nobody's living there, and the local municipalities are dealing with that.
Well, what do you want us to get from that solicitor?
Hold on thought. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. Don't worry, right now I'm giving you data. I'm going to get to what we're doing about this. Because the county has taken its first steps already, okay? So let's talk about housing affordability. And again, this is at the time that the report was done, a single-family house, the median sale price for a single-family house was $650,000. About 2 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, a report came out that the median sale price is now $699,000. All right, so the picture's gotten even worse because income limits haven't gone up. To be able to only just put the 5% down and cover your closing costs, you need $71,500 to be able to afford that house at $650,000, which means that to cover the balance of the purchase price with your mortgage, you need an annual income of $235,000. When we talk about a family of four and affordable and what they're earning, at 80% of median income, that family of four only earns $93,650. Even at 100% of AMI, of area median income, they earn $117,000. There's a gap at 80% of almost $400,000 of that household of four being able to afford the median sale price in Westchester. Again, every municipality has different numbers. The numbers are in the report. So you can see the median sale price in Yonkers, and you can see it in Portchester, and you can see it in every town and city and village in this municipality. So it's not, but I'm giving you the countywide numbers to be able to help you understand. And so let's talk about renters. The median renter, because renters make generally, renters generally have lower incomes, the median renter's income is $36,690. The two-bedroom fair market rent, which is only set at 40% of the average rents, the two-bedroom FMR is $1,687. But when that family earning $36,000 and $36,690 is spending only 30% of their income toward their rent over the course of 12 months, they only have $917 a month to pay their rent. There's a gap to even just be able to afford the 40% rent level of $770 a month. But the good news is there are three communities in Westchester where the renters' incomes do make the cost of housing, cost of rental housing in those communities is in fact affordable. Bronxville, Newcastle, and Pelham Manor, all very high income areas, so the renters' incomes are very high in those communities, which is why they can afford their income. So our conclusions, and we're going to get to where we're going from here. So the total gross need for affordable housing is 82,000 units. Now, if I just left it at that, you'd all just walk out of the door, put your heads down, and just say, well, we're done. There's nothing we can do. But that's not. Many of these people are, in fact, living in decent, safe, and sanitary housing. They're just not being able to afford where they are living. All right, so there's no question that the greatest need is for rental assistance or some subsidy to be able to cover their costs. We have many seniors who are house rich but income poor. They're paying more than 50% of their income toward their housing costs, but they own their house. All right, but we've also demonstrated that there's a need for housing rehabilitation, there's a need for foreclosure counseling and eviction prevention. So when we actually boiled it down to, okay, but what's the need for new housing units, new affordable housing units? We actually take that number, the 82,000, and we get down to 11,700. And that's based on three factors. Number one is those 4,500 severely overcrowded households, because in that situation, you've got too many people living in that housing unit. Very clearly, you would need to create another housing unit to take the burden off that housing unit. We also, at the time of the study was done, had 846 homeless families. They have no home. It's not decent, safe, and sanitary. They have no home at all. We need to make sure we're accounting for our homeless population. And then the last part of this is the 6,300 families who have registered on the county's Home Seeker website. That's the county's affordable housing website where we ask and collect information from people who are actively looking for affordable housing in Westchester County. We right now have over 18,000 families have signed up looking for affordable housing in Westchester County. But some of them already live in Westchester. So they're counted in the other number, that rent assistance number, okay? But 6,300 of them at the time that this report was done told us they were not living in Westchester. In fact, many of them may likely be some of those 199,000 people that are commuting into Westchester. They can't afford to live here, but they might be working here. All right, so those three numbers get us to the 11,700 need. Now, I'm actually going to jump for a little bit and talk about a New York City report that came out, the geography of jobs, because the link is indisputable that without housing, we are not getting jobs, okay? And so in 2018, the New York City Regional Planning Office came out with the Geography of Jobs report. You're going to see in a second why this is so important. Clearly, there is a link between housing and jobs. And housing, production of housing in Westchester and in the entire Hudson Valley has slowed down, and we are not keeping up with the region. Okay, if you don't mind, jump to the next slide, and then we're going to have to go back. Between 2010 and 2017, the entire Hudson Valley only issued 25,000 building permits. The entire Hudson Valley. And if you know the area and all that, there's a lot of dots up along the I-84 corridor. Okay, so Orange County, Dutchess County, they've issued a lot of building permits. Okay, now, in that same time period, northern New Jersey has issued 151,000 building permits. And it's not even easy access to get into New York City from northern New Jersey. Okay, but in the same time period where we issued 25,000, they issued 151,000, and New York City has blown us all away they've issued 164,000 building permits. So what does that mean? If you don't mind, go back to the slide. Thank you. What it means is New York City is certainly keeping ahead of our job growth. We know northern New Jersey doesn't have seeker. We're not going to start in that discussion, but we know that obviously that's an issue. It makes it easier to build housing in New Jersey because they don't have seeker. But what it means is our workforce is aging. And in fact, the housing needs assessment tells you that every municipality in Westchester lost between the population of those who are 30 to 44. We lost our younger workforce. And if we don't turn this around, we're going to find ourselves really, really in dire straits. Because our over 85 population has grown tremendously. Some municipalities saw growth of over 200% of their population of over 85, okay? That's, again, the data's in the report. I'm just tying it all together for you. And so what's it doing? I come down the Taconic Parkway, there's a lot of people on that Taconic Parkway with me, all right? Not how quiet it was 30 years ago or 30 plus years ago when I started commuting up north. There's a lot of people putting a strain on our transit system, our highways, our roadways, our trains, our buses, public transportation, because of the fact that they have to commute further. So now if you can go, thank you. Bottom line is the need is all over Westchester. There is not a single municipality that had a good report, except for those three that had affordable rentals in their communities for their renters. All right, but every other category, there's data in there. And that tells us, again, the need is all over Westchester. So what are we doing about it? Getting to your point at hand. So moving forward, so in 2020, the county executive has said, we've got to do something. And so he put over $20 million into this year's budget to be able to start addressing things. First and foremost, we put $35,000 into education and training to train people. We want to get more homeowners. We're below the national average. But understand something, with the last foreclosure, this is why I'm tying it together again. Foreclosures are the people who have been foreclosed upon may not now have the credit to be able to buy that new home yet. And so in reality, they're putting an extra strain on our rental market because they're renting units because they can't afford, they don't have the credit to buy. But they might have more income, so they can pay higher rents. Okay, so there's an extra strain on our rental system right now because of that. So we got to get more people back into the world of home ownership because not for nothing, but one day all of you are going to want to sell your homes. And we have to make sure that there is the housing market can actually handle that. So we're putting $300,000 toward housing stabilization. Sorry, I'm talking too fast. That's eviction prevention and foreclosure counseling. Because again, we don't want to keep the system going with foreclosures. There are still thousands of units in the system right now in Westchester that are still being subject to foreclosure. They're just in the process, okay? And then employer assistance. We're kicking off a new program this year where we're going to start working with employers to see how can we meet their employees' needs to encourage people to move to Westchester, whether it's providing down payment assistance or helping them in some other way. We're going to work with specific employers who have indicated a willingness to put their own money forward to be able to work with us to meet their needs of their employees. So the county executive has also put $10 million in our New Homes Land Program. Some of our developers here have used that program. That's where the county buys the land for an affordable housing development and sells it to the developer for $1. So we have effectively taken the cost of land out of the development budget because the county will pay it for you. All right. He's also set aside $10 million in our housing implementation fund. This is an infrastructure fund where the funds go to the local municipality to help them provide other infrastructure related to providing the affordable housing. And then we put $500,000 aside for pre-development and feasibility because there are many municipalities that don't know how to take the first step because they don't have any of their own money set aside, where they might say, you know what, there's a parking lot over there. Why can't we consider that for affordable housing, build over the parking lot, but they don't know how to start. And so by putting aside some money for feasibility, we can help some of those municipalities with that process. All right, then we go to land and zoning initiatives. There are essentially two different things that we're working on. Number one is we now have an up-to-date database because not only do the municipalities want to know what do we already have, particularly when new municipalities or new supervisors or mayors come on board, they want to know what's there already. But many people want to know where can I find it, where can I apply for affordable housing. And then, one more, go back. And then the last is we're working with municipalities. Many municipalities in Westchester here are still so small that they don't have professional planners. They have the planners who help you work on their planning boards and zoning board issues, but they don't have professional planning staff who can help them with their zoning ordinance. So we've started creating model ordinances so the municipalities can just adopt this, put it in their code, it becomes another opportunity to create more affordable housing opportunities. Not necessarily deed restricted, but so the first one that we rolled out last year was accessory dwelling units. I took all four of my children and now moved out of my house. My 4-bedroom house, I could actually create a rental unit in there. Of course, I would do it legally, but, you know, my husband wouldn't, that aside. Believe me, that's So anyway, so model is actually only right now, I think 14 or 17 municipalities allow accessory dwelling units. Okay, not all of them do because they don't have somebody to help them write that. We've written the model ordinance for them. They can adopt wholesale, they can take the provisions that work for their municipality. So we are encouraging more municipalities to in fact adopt and provide accessory apartments. Next we're working on senior housing. Can I tell you that in 12 municipalities we found 15 different senior housing ordinances in this county, in 12. So there are a couple municipalities that have multiple senior housing ordinances. Again, that's really confusing, so we're just going to put a model out there. We're going to give them a model ordinance about parking requirements, because there are, in fact, we think, certain places where the parking requirement is just too high, and as we all know, parking drives generally how many units you get. It's not always just the height of the building, it's really how many parking spaces can you put on the ground. So, and then the last one we know we're going to be working on is, we have done in 2004, 2005, a study about office park housing and adaptive. So we want to be able to expand that now and take a look at a lot of our old campus housing that's sitting vacant right now, how we might be able to build more housing in mixed commercial use and the adaptive reuse of other buildings. I am done.
I have a
So obviously there's a lot more in this report, but I'm just giving you the highlights. Yes?
This is just a suggestion. I noticed when I used to live in the city and now I live up here, and you were talking about the building in Manhattan as compared to Westchester County. Have you ever applied for a permit, a building permit, in New York City or in Westchester County? I want to kill the people in Westchester County. Specifically New Rochelle. I mean, I can't tell you how easy it is to get one in New York City and to get the work done correctly. Up here, it's like pulling teeth. I mean, it's not streamlined. I even went in there, I said, just tell us how much you want, we'll write you a check. And then there's no pamphlet on saying, requirements. They don't want to talk to you. And it's not just New Rochelle. I know it's Mount Vernon, I know it's Harrison, I know
it's all over the
It's a
county.
nightmare.
And honestly, we have 43 systems in 43 municipalities because every municipality controls their own zoning and their own land use. So we know there are 43.
That's the problem. You want more
We know. Which is why, again, we're trying to help them by streamlining some of their ordinances.
Okay.
talk about
We'll
foreclosure.
get you in the corner, we're going to Mr. Chotaros now.
Thank you. Welcome. You have foreclosures. Mount Vernon has one of the higher foreclosure rates. The problem is the seniors there can't afford the taxes. So you cannot solve anything, and they're gonna jump 7% higher with the new mayor coming in, which means more seniors are gonna leave the town. What the previous mayor called them, what was the term he used for the empty houses?
Zombie
Zombie homes. You have more zombie homes, okay, in Mount Vernon. Why? A little nothing house, 15, 20,000 in taxes. So government is the problem. Government is not the solution, clearly. And all these statistics are very interesting, but they don't go anywhere unless you can solve the problem. And that's what I don't see with this. We have this problem, how are we going to solve it? We need to lower taxes considerably in this entire state. We've got to drive the whole socialistic mentality that the politicians have come up with. Socialism. I come from Greece. We've had it. You see, we were broke for 10 years because of socialism. We were giving everybody money. Christmas bonus is double. Easter double. Where was the money coming from? The same thing here. You're talking about all these poor people. You can't get taxes from them. So what do you do to New York? You create even more stringent rent regulations. So those of us who are able to pay the taxes, because when my wife goes to City Hall to pay taxes, she sees all the elderly there. Can I pay a little now and maybe a little later? And you know, they're crying and whatnot. Government's not helping anyone. And these statistics are pointless because they don't lead to help. And they don't lead to solving the problem. We've got to get to the solving problems once again. And that's where all of us are going to get fed up. Even the poor are going to realize all these new laws not going to help them one bit because they've been tried before. History shows us nowhere does socialism work. You got to have a little capital in the system. Someone has to produce something. Now, I'm an immigrant kid that slept on 3 chairs for 5 years because we had no money. So I'm not talking about with a silver spoon in my mouth to begin with. So, you know, we work hard, we get to where we have to go if we want to get there. But not all of us want to go there. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. But you got to come up with some solutions, you know, instead of the data.
Okay, here we are. Here.
I just want to say one thing. I saw all your statistics and all the money that you're going to be spending to all these new programs. But I don't see that any one of them is helping the people of today. We have the foreclosures today. We have the homelessness today. Those monies are not going to help. What is the county going to do for the people in Westchester today and now? I don't want to think about 5 years from now. I don't want to be homeless for 5 years. I don't see any of those solutions to a present-day resolution to help the people of our county. And I'm really disappointed in that. I really am.
All right, I will tell you this, the eviction and foreclosure prevention money is there today. It's there to help people so they don't lose their home and they don't get in the system. All right? Because we don't want that problem.
Hello. How many people remember Richard Obama? Richard Obama? Over 50 years ago. I started my career managing Richard Obama housing developments in Westchester. How dead is that concept in terms of getting multiple dwellings built? I don't know that you'd be able to achieve the numbers that you're looking to do by building individual houses, but if you might achieve them by multiple dwellings, mid-rise, how dead is the concept of Mitchell-Lama? You know, state level, of course you can't be city, but state Mitchell-Lama. Question.
The state has been putting a lot of money toward the construction of affordable housing, but it's generally through the low-income housing tax credit program, all right, through New York State Housing Finance Agency, through the Housing Trust Fund. So New York State has definitely been an active partner in terms of building new construction, but those programs only work when you're talking about 50 units or more. How many municipalities in Westchester want to see 50 units at one time get built and in one concentration? So that does create another dilemma right then and there. All right, how many of our municipalities have the infrastructure to support 50 units in one place? All right, even New Rochelle, where you've been trying to build, New Rochelle has recognized that they have a serious issue with sewer capacity and water capacity. They've got to do significant upgrades right now because they've approved all this development. So again, we're working with them right now.
I want to give them a permit for that.
They need permits too, don't worry.
Alan Singer, go ahead.
I think part of the problem too is that municipalities really don't want to do what you want to do. Their zoning codes, their approval processes, the cost of getting anything approved is so prohibitive that there's no way you can build affordable housing, and you can't build it in our lifetime. And so unless the county is in a position to dictate to some of these municipalities how they're going to deal with the approval process, you're up against the brick wall.
And as you know, we have no control over the county, over the local municipalities. All we can do is make recommendations on their referrals.
Could the county do a template for like a permit, a building permit? So it's the same across the board?
That's actually not a bad
That's a
idea.
suggestion.
Not a bad idea.
That's what other towns do.
Yeah, no, I like that idea.
You go to Dallas, and the county runs the building.
Oh, that we know. Even in New York State, Nassau County and some of them, they run it for
What's
them.
going on here? We've got 43 municipalities, 43 fire departments, 43
You've got a lot of them.
police departments. Just pick up the phone and call 911 for an emergency.
Right.
And the guy's gonna say, what town are you in? Is it New Rochelle? Is it Scarsdale? Because I gotta know which department it's in. I gotta show which ambulance this is.
I hear you.
Talking about government, getting in the way of things like affordable housing. A lot of us here are the people who provide affordable housing. And we recently had a new rent law passed. And one of the aspects of it, basically, or a couple of them, discouraged in a big way the investment in affordable housing. And
The investment in the existing market rate housing.
that's right.
Seriously, I saw that.
Right, and so you're going to be in a situation where some of these low-rent apartments are going to come up, and the finances just don't work based on what's in the law,
Right.
and they're just going to disappear. And so the number of affordable housing units is going to decline. And then if it continues over a long period of time with this lack of investment, you're going to have things like fires, where if you have leaks, you have water and electricity, doesn't go together, you're going to lose big units and tragedies. And that's a situation where, I don't know if you could say, we didn't do it, the state did it,
I won't
but
go there.
people may
You
ask
all know that already.
about that, but I'd like in this kind of a presentation of affordable housing, basically, you gotta stop the spigot from, disappearing out the bottom. The fact is, there are a lot of buildings here, old buildings, that have good bones, and they just need a little tender care. Systems have to be upgraded, or you have a situation like you have with the New York City Housing Authority, where they have $34 billion of infrastructure that has not been developed over a long period of time. So I don't know if anybody ever asked you whether that's going to help you provide affordable housing. I think you know what.
Oh, no, I know. When we heard those rent laws, that's true. First thing we did was organize the training so the municipalities would understand what that meant.
Yes.
Because until the municipalities understand the burden that you're now under, how can they enforce property code? Because you can't invest in a property for the income stream just isn't coming in.
Right.
We truly get it,
Yeah,
okay?
and you couldn't rent some of these apartments because they wouldn't satisfy. Somebody would go to the building department and say, this is substandard.
That's why I think I was surprised at how many ECPA units were, because I expected to see more warehousing of
The
units,
fact
honestly.
is, those numbers also, we look at numbers every year, and they say there are 25,000 in
That's right.
Westchester, and that's now 34. 10,000 units, I mean, that's like a big difference.
Thank you, because when I saw that number, I was like, there's no way.
Somebody's got to check the numbers.
Okay, no, but they did already.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Well,
questions?
thank you. Definitely.
Jane Curtis.
Hi. I attended one of the community sessions that had input into the survey in Mount Vernon, and what I heard was that the official definition of affordable is not the definition of affordable on the ground, and that people simply cannot even afford affordable and low-income housing. And even if we build new, quote, affordable housing, people can't afford it. So what do we do to address that real gap?
So what she's talking about is during the course of the consultants undertaking the study, we did do a couple public outreach sessions because we wanted to hear what the general public had to say about housing. And so one was done in Mount Vernon at the community college and one was held up in Austin. And yeah, the outcry was even affordable housing is not affordable to many people because we're setting those income limits. I showed you 80%. That's a family that's only earning $93,000 for at 83% of median. There's a lot of families who earn a lot less than that. But as the county executive has said repeatedly, for us to go lower, it needs even more subsidy. So, and New York State generally wants to stick around 60%. Sometimes they'll let you go higher, but sometimes you gotta go lower. But you don't also want all in one place, all the units to be at one affordability level. You want some variety even within that structure. So yeah, there's no question there's need at all levels. There's needs all over the county. But unless municipalities want to see more subsidized housing, it's going to be really difficult for the county to meet that need as well.
We have a question from Eric Hazel.
Eric?
Hey, Barbara. Thanks for coming tonight, by the way. So this question came about at a committee meeting, and from Murphy Brothers reminded me of a comment I made. And so the comment was, we want to build affordable housing, public housing. Why don't we use public land to have this housing built on? Why are we using private property and having the government buy that from us at whatever they can afford to pay for that housing? Why we have all this land in the county, why can't we use some of that to meet the needs of the community?
That's a good question, and I am prepared to answer that one. So in Westchester County, there's only 3 county departments that are allowed to own land. Parks Department, which is all parks land. You're not allowed to get rid of parks land unless you replace it, okay? Our Department of Environmental Facilities and all their land has your wastewater treatment plants, okay? Or the Department of Public Works, which is the rest of the county land. Okay, no other department in the county is allowed to own land. The county has already gone many times looking at all the land that we have, okay, to see what's available. And many of you know this already. If there's a piece of undeveloped land in Westchester, there is generally a reason why that property has not been developed. And so the ability to develop it, steep slopes, wetlands, drainage issues, whatever it is, and no access to the roadways, there's, and unfortunately in the past couple of decades, when there's even been local developers trying to buy or trying to produce housing, the neighbors come up to the municipality, to the state, to whoever, and say, buy that land so it doesn't get developed. And then they put deed restrictions on it, it becomes parkland, whatever it is. So generally speaking, there's not a whole lot of public land available. All right, I know in Westchester County, we looked at every site that we have left. I mean, literally, we are down to the fact that inside, anybody knows grasslands? Inside the oval of grasslands is pretty much all that's left. There's not even in grasslands do we have sites that are available. But, we're working with a developer on the North 60 to see what other potential exists. So, but that's why the county is willing to step up and say, okay, we'll help you buy land, because we don't have land. All right, the land that the little bits and pieces of land that the county is trying to dispose of right now, there's a little bit of a property right along and exit along the Hudson River property that only Ursuline, who's right next door, really can make use of that property. There's one right next between the Rockford Parkway and Ferris Avenue and White Plains, with a cemetery across the street. You know, there's a gas line that runs through it. There's a reason all this land is not that we have. A little bit of pieces happen.
So wait, hold on though. There's two major properties right now that are waiting to be bought up. And you have United Hospital in Westchester, and you have the college in New Rochelle that they have just gone bankrupt.
And they're both private park, they're not public lands.
I guess we look at all the parking land and say, wow.
Well, actually,
Why can't we do that there? Why can't we do
Eric,
that?
think of what you were able to do. We look at the underutilized parcels that might have parking lots on there and say, why can't we build it? All right, ours is the building that had an office park all the way in the back and the rest of it was really underutilized and was able to create 14 townhouses and replace the office space. So again, we look at other properties and buildings that had other uses before to see how might we be able to bring new life. We've taken a middle school up in Peachtree, made it into 120 units of senior housing. We've taken a couple churches now. We took a bank building in Austin. We've taken an old warehouse in Irvington along the waterfront. It's now a library downstairs and it's 20-some odd units of affordable housing above. So we're looking, again, at existing structure, the adaptive reuse of existing buildings because the land is not necessarily available.
It's too bad we can't get that parkland for what we really need it for, which is housing. Hundreds and hundreds, thousands of acres throughout the county that's never been touched, that's old growth forest, and I guess that's a state issue, is what you're
But
saying.
because it's never been developed, you don't want to know the archaeological review that you have to go through to see what Indians used to be there.
Two more questions.
Battle Park City, crazy, right? The city needed more land, so they filled in, and they created Battle Park City. How, is that crazy up here? I know about the environmental issues, and I'm just saying, assuming it's going to work. How crazy is the idea of filling in viable areas? It's crazy. Okay.
It depends on the municipality and how well they
got sea level rise. Yeah, but I'm saying, and the land we have now, you're going to lose. Areas around the hospital.
Right, the one on its own.
Long Island, you're going to lose land.
Even areas in land that are around our reservoirs.
One possibility is going up.
Right, going vertical instead of falling out, yes.
Westchester Planning Department last year, through the head of Westchester Planning Department,
Yeah.
was given a proposal by someone who wanted, in the middle of the city of Mount Vernon, wanted for 30 stories. And you said, your committee said, I don't think so. It's inappropriate for Mount Vernon to offer 30 stories. Whereas, White Plains has 42 stories. Yonkers has 42 stories. Those people would come in with a lot of money, and they left. And they were willing to offer 30 stories. We need to build up. You need to allow that.
But you gotta make sure you got the appropriate infrastructure in place to support that.
So there's also social consequences to building up.
Right.
Okay? So you might provide more housing, but you might create other issues or problems that the city doesn't want to deal with. High rises are not exactly the best living conditions. You know, White Plains toward all the old ones down.
There's a fault line.
So this is a wonderful conversation, and this is just the start of the conversation, is what I want to sort of leave you with. We're going to be coming back to this theme again and again. I want to thank very much the commissioner for being here.